Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Abdul Basit Sohail from Lahore, Pakistan. Today we shall discuss about the legal capacity of parties in contract. Our first slide is a revision of previous lectures. Let's revise briefly for new viewers. First of all, what is contract? Contract is a combination of an offer and acceptance. One party offers and second party accepts, which gives rise to certain legal consequences. Their offer and acceptance creates some obligation for offerer and some obligations for acceptor with regard to the subject matter. We can better understand this definition with example. For example, Mr. A offers laptop of rupees 10,000 to Mr. B and Mr. B accepts it. So this is the valid contract. In this example, Mr. A is the offerer. He is creating some legal obligations with regard to the laptop and amount. He has obligation to hand over laptop to Mr. B. He has the right to receive 10,000 rupees. And Mr. B also has some legal obligations with regard to the laptop. He has right to receive the laptop. He has liability to hand over rupees 10,000 to Mr. B. So this laptop, which is the subject matter in this example, created some obligations with regard to both parties. So there are three elements, three pillars of contract: consent, parties, and subject matter. What is consent? Consent comprises of offer and acceptance. How an offer is made and accepted. What are conditions of a valid offer and acceptance? I made separate video on consent. You can watch that video and can get link in the description. And subject matter, which is the underlying cause. In our example, laptop was subject matter, which is offered by Mr. A and accepted by Mr. B. I also made separate video on subject matter. You can also get link of subject matter in the description. So third and last element or pillar of the subject of the contract is parties. Who can give valid consent? So this is basic and essential conditions that the parties who are entering in a contract should have such capacity to conclude or enter into the contract. So what is capacity? Let's revise. A basic requirement for conclusion of a valid contract is the necessity that the contracting parties should be qualified to enter a contract. So parties are required to possess legal capacity for this purpose. What is legal capacity? It refers to the capacity of a person to establish rights for himself or to undertake obligations. We can better understand this definition with example. Let's take the example of laptop again. Mr. A buys laptop of rupees 10,000 from B. In this example, Mr. A is establishing his right for laptop and also undertaking to pay rupees 10,000 to Mr. B. He is establishing right and also undertaking obligation. So for undertaking an obligation, the person should have legal capacity. He should not be mad or other limiting cause. So capacity is the necessary or basic requirement to enter or conclude a contract. If party, any one party in the contract is missing basic necessary capacity to enter into a contract, so then that contract will not be valid. But there are some exceptions to this condition of legal capacity. For child and lunatic person, they cannot enter into a contract. They cannot conclude a contract by themselves, but they still have right to receive a share of inheritance from their father, mother. They have right to receive their share in the will, which is created in their favor, and they can be beneficiary, can take benefit from family takaful and from waqf created in their favor. There are two types of legal capacity. Number one, passive or receptive capacity. We can also say ahliyatul wujub. Ahliyatul wujub further bifurcated into two. Number one, incomplete receptive capacity. We can also say incomplete passive capacity. Second is the complete receptive capacity. We can also say complete passive capacity. And second and main type of legal capacity is active legal capacity, which is also called ahliyatul ada. Let's understand passive or receptive capacity. This is a capacity of a person in which he can receive rights and obligations. Point to be noted here, he is receiving right and receiving the obligation. He is receiving obligation here, he is not undertaking obligation. So it is possessed by all human beings, whether they are children, adults, whether they are sane or insane. Sane or insane both have this passive or receptive capacity. Further, we will revise these blue lines after understanding the concept of ahliyatul ada. So this passive or receptive capacity is further bifurcated into number one, incomplete receptive capacity. Capacity that enables a person to receive only rights but not the obligations. Where the person receives only rights but uh, does not receive obligations. For example, fetus has right to receive share of inheritance. He has the right in the waqf created in his favor, in the will created in his favor. Fetus has not entitled to those rights, the accusation of which need an acceptance. He cannot receive those rights where acceptance is necessary. For example, a gift made in favor of fetus. So fetus cannot receive gift because for accepting a gift, acceptance is necessary. So fetus cannot accept, or so that's why such rights where acquisition is required on the basis of acceptance. So such rights are not allowed for fetus. So he has rights of in inheritance, in waqf, in will created in his favor, provided he born alive. Second is the complete receptive capacity. Capacity where a person receives rights and obligations, both. In incomplete, he receives only right but not obligation. But in complete receptive capacity, he receives rights and obligations both. A person acquires this capacity after birth and has until death. For example, children receive rights and obligations as guardians are acting on their behalf. They can enter in contract of sale or gift through guardians. They cannot enter into a contract of sale or gift by their own. They can enter on the behalf of guardians. They have obligation to pay for necessities brought for them. For example, if someone is looking an orphan, uh, he is looking property of an orphan, so he can offset expenses uh, which are incurred on food, clothing of that orphan. So orphan is liable to pay for the expenses incurred on him or her. So payment of zakat by child, there are two viewpoints. Hanfi view is that zakat is a sort of worship. So child is not entitled to pay zakat because this is sort of worship. So zakat, child is not bound to offer salah. So that's why he is also not bound to pay zakat. This is Hanafi viewpoint. But so far majority viewpoint is concerned, they say that zakat is type of worship, but it is not imposed on the child. It is imposed on his property. So that's why child is bound to pay zakat, according to the majority viewpoint. So second is the active legal capacity, which is also called ahliyatul ada. It refers to the ability of a person to manage his wealth. He can manage his wealth in his benefit with his discretion, exercise his rights, and undertake obligations in a manner recognized by Sharia, not beyond the limits of Sharia, without being subject to another person's approval. This is main difference between Ahliyatul Wujub and Ahliyatul Ada. That Ahliyatul Ada can conclude a contract without the permission of guardian, without the permission of father, etc. So let's understand the blue lines. So now we have understood the concept of Ahliyatul Ada and Ahliyatul Wujub. So all Ahliyatul Wujub are not Ahliyatul Ada because Ahliyatul Wujub are passive or receptive capacity. So all Ahliyatul Wujub are not Ahliyatul Ada, and all Ahliyatul Ada, all active capacity person are Ahliyatul Wujub. So this is necessary to understand that all Ahliyatul Wujub are not Ahliyatul Ada, but all Ahliyatul Ada are Ahliyatul Wujub. So according to a verse of Quran, which mentions age of marriage and puberty or sound judgment and maturity for Ahliyatul Ada, but it needs to be further elaborated. So that's why jurists rely on the age for Ahliyatul Ada. Hanfi viewpoint, for 18 years for male and 17 years for female to be Ahliyatul Ada. Others 15, others mean majority viewpoint other than the Hanfi school of thought, 15 for both gender for to be Ahliyatul Ada. Let's understand the concept of Sabi al Mumayyiz. This is the child who can distinguish between good and bad. According to Hanfi and Malki, a child within the age of 8 to puberty age, a person who is in between age of 8 and puberty age, he can differentiate or distinguish between good and bad. So according to Hanfi and Malki, Sabi al-Mumayyiz, that child can conclude contract beneficial to him even without the permission of guardian, but cannot conclude contracts which are harmful for him even with his guardian's permission. But so far Shafi and Hanbali are concerned, they say Sabi al-Mumayyiz has not basic capacity, not requisite capacity. He cannot conclude contracts with or without permission of guardians. Only his guardians can conclude on his behalf. There are circumstances that affect legal capacity of a person. Those circumstances are insanity, partial insanity, imbecility, idiocy, forgetfulness, prodigality and weakness of intellect, sleeping persons, unconsciousness, death, illness, which is also called maradul maut, intoxication and bankruptcy and coercion. These are the 11 circumstances that can affect legal capacity of a person. Let's understand further. Insanity. Contracts performed by insane person is equal to the status of a child who could not distinguish between good and bad. So insane person cannot conclude or cannot enter into a contract. His status is like a child. Partial insanity. Sanity can be continuous or non-continuous. A transaction made by a person who is not continuous insane. In his state of in his state of sanity, when he is a sane person, is considered valid. The contract will be considered valid. If he is concluding a contract in the state of sanity, in state of soundness, so then that contract is valid. Matu is stated as Sabi al Mumayyiz that we discussed some moments ago. Imbecility or idiocy. Imbecile is a person who is deranged in mind, whose understanding is weak, his speech is confused, his status is like a child. He can conclude or enter into a contracts which are beneficial for him, but he cannot conclude contracts which are not beneficial or which are harmful to him. Forgetfulness, according to the majority viewpoint, they say that contract through mistake and forgetfulness is not a contract at all. Their basis is saying of Prophet Muhammad, which says that forgetfulness and mistake can be offsetted by a Muslim. So Hanfi maintain that if we do so, so then the door will be open for setting up false defenses. So people will start to say that I did contract on the basis of forgetfulness, on the basis of mistake, and security of transactions demands that this should not be allowed. So this is the difference between Hanfi school of thought and the majority school of thought. Prodigality and weakness of intellect. Safa refers to a state where person's decision or activities are contrary to guidelines of Sharia and reason. For example, a compulsive gambler or a person who is of a little understanding who could be easily deceived. If a person is a compulsive gambler, he will do gambling definitely. So that's why he will not act according to the guidelines of Sharia that where to spend money or where not to spend money. So second, a person whose understanding is weak, he could be easily deceived. So these are the Safi. One person is declared Safi, so by the court, so then judge will be his guardian. Commercial transactions made by Safi could not be executed until judge is satisfied. So for validity of his transactions, the satisfaction of the judge is necessary. Sleeping person. Any act performed by a sleeping person that creates or waives rights and obligation is not valid because he is a sleeping person. So that's why any act performed during that state of mind cannot be valid. Unconsciousness is similar to sleeping, but sleeping is natural state and unconsciousness is not natural state. So any contract concluded in condition of unconsciousness is not valid. Death, illness, which is called Maradul Maut, an illness from which there is strong probability of death. There is probability that the person will die due to this illness. It includes sentence to death also. So this person in death illness is limited to 1/3 of his wealth. He can exercise his right to 1/3 of his property only. Intoxication can be voluntary or involuntary. According to Malkis and Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim from Hanbali, contract is not valid. They say that in both cases, voluntary intoxication or involuntary intoxication, contract is not valid because rational understanding is not there. So that's why contract is not valid in both cases. But so far as majority school of thought is concerned, they say that contract is not valid in involuntary intoxication where person did not get intoxicated with his or her own will. But if intoxication is caused by his own will, so then this contract is valid. According to majority viewpoint, contract is valid if he caused voluntary intoxication, but contract is not valid if it is caused involuntary intoxication. This could serve as sort of punishment to that person who voluntarily weakened his rational power. According to majority viewpoint, if a person voluntarily weakened his rational power due to intoxication and in his state of intoxication, he sold his own house on cheaper prices to another person. So this contract will be valid according to majority, and it will serve as sort of punishment who voluntarily weakened his rational understanding. Bankruptcy. When a debtor's debts are equal to or exceed his assets, he is considered to be an insolvent or bankrupt. His transactions are not valid until approved by a court or creditors. Court and the creditor have right to approve his transactions. Coercion is to compel a person to do a thing without his consent, without his approval, or through fear. This is not valid according to majority viewpoint, but so far Hanafis are concerned, Hanafis treat coerced contracts as suspended contract. Coerced person has right to ratify or revoke it. So they also hold that contract of marriage, contract of divorce, and manumission are valid even with coercion. So according to majority viewpoint, this contract under coercion is not valid. But so far as Hanfis are concerned, they say that this is suspended contract. A party has the right to ratify or revoke it. Our reference of our this video is Islamic Law of Contract and Business Transactions by Dr. Tahir Mansoori. May Allah forgive my mistake in content and concept. Thank you for watching this video.